Okay. Okay, I'll call a meeting to order. My apologies, our previous meeting ran later than it was intended.
Chair's fault.
Chair's fault. Mr. Clerk, of course, they don't know it wasn't me.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, this evening we have an 8-item agenda. Items 1 and 2 are presentations. Items 3 and 4 are concerned minutes. Item 5 is a bylaw for final adoption. And items 6, 7, and 8 are reports of staff. I would note that it is Council's intention to bring forward item 8, which is an appointment to our task force immediately following item 1, as one of our delegates this evening is being appointed to a city committee.
So item 8 refers to the appointment of someone who's in our audience tonight and who's speaking on item 1. So we will make it, we'll go in this order. Item 1, item 8, and then item 2. How's that? Mr. Clerk.
So he doesn't have to sign things.
Moving forward then. Our first item this evening is the All Nations Festival, for which we have two presenters, and I'd like to invite Mr. Ustindi and Mr. Key to come forward and present on that.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for having us here this evening to introduce.
Yeah, step right up to the microphone, please.
Thank you very much for having us here this evening, Mr. Mayor and Council, for introducing the All Nations Festival to you and give you a better insight into what the festival will be about. My name is Malcolm Key. I'm Ojibwe, originally from the Matagami First Nations in Northern Ontario. I've been a guest out here in Coast Salish territory for the last 20 years. I work with Coquitlam School District as the Aboriginal Community Coordinator. And part of my job is to engage in the community to represent our 1,280 Aboriginal students within the Coquitlam School District. And when I first took the position, I went out and checked into our community with the school district through Port Moody, through Coquitlam, through Port Coquitlam, to connect with some of the community organizations that work with Aboriginal families, and quickly discovered that there wasn't many organizations. And so one of the things that we felt was a great opportunity in order to engage our Aboriginal youth into the community was to create a festival. 3 years ago, we hosted a festival with the City of Port Moody. The festival attracted out about 2,000 people to it, and it turned out to be quite a wonderful day of cultural activity and community engagement that we felt was great for everybody that was involved. The beauty of the festival that it's an inclusive opportunity for bringing together all cultures, all nations, that we can come together and celebrate and appreciate all the cultures that we represent. So one of the things we'd like to share with you this evening is some of the partnership, the coalition of partners that we've created to date. Coquitlam School District is involved in the production of the festival in partnership with Tsleil-Waututh First Nation. We also have partnered ourselves with Coquitlam First Nation, and we are with the VIMAF, which is the Vancouver Indigenous Media Arts Foundation. We're with Evergreen Cultural Centre. We're using their site as some of the program platform to be hosted from there. We're also involved with Douglas College. So really what we are proposing is that this area, this central area, is going to be the core area of the festival. The festival will take place from July the 23rd to July the 25th. It's over 3 days.
So I'll go over some of the programming components. My name is Erwin Ostindi. I'm a cultural producer. Started my work in Coquitlam in the 1980s at Le Chateau at Coquitlam Centre, so this is my authentic cultural roots. But I'm a cultural producer and working with the school board on this festival project. There's a cluster of components that make up the festival. I'll quickly run through some of those components because we're short on time today. But some of you are familiar with the work of the Pechakucha Coquitlam project. Mandara Leibovitz is in the audience. So Mandara's joined our team to bring some of the community engagement work that she does really well, and some of this programming. So Pechakucha will be about the history of Coquitlam and the future of Coquitlam. We'll also deliver 2 nights of heritage storytelling at the library. One of the exciting parts of the festival is a 2-day conference that's hosted by Douglas College, funded by the Canada Council, SHRC, the Social Sciences Humanities Research Council of Canada, New Relationship Trust. So some heavy hitters in terms of the academia and cultural scene. Lee Miracle and Gwen Point, the Chancellor at the University of Fraser Valley, will be doing opening remarks. Some heavy hitters in the music world as well. Juno Award winner George Leach and Oz 12. Interesting, 2 artists who have national profiles who are, interestingly, both have Coquitlam First Nation roots. So in many ways, it's a beautiful homecoming for them. 2 days of outdoor stages in and around Lafarge. When you think about Canada Day, the 2012, 2013 footprint, that's what we're looking at. Lots of food trucks, so that's a big component. One of the big draws for the public will be coming to enjoy a taste of Coquitlam with about 15 different food trucks. And we're really looking at the language groups and the cultural groups within Coquitlam to really draw on both the food and the cultural programming. A lot of emphasis on green technology. Solar displays. We'll have a 15-foot tricycle that kids can ride on that is powered by solar panels. We'll have a stage that's powered by bicycles that kids can ride on. So a lot of emphasis on green, sustainability. And one of the events that we're really excited about is a round table and a breakfast at Evergreen on Friday, July the 24th. That will, I think, Your Worship, you have an invitation so far, but we'll send, I think, a more formal one in the coming week or 2 and give you more an update on that. Evergreen will be hosting a comic book fair, an art exhibit of graphic artists, and we'll have literary salon and spoken word and literary arts in the theater. You do those.
So one of the other things that we would like to also present at the festival is a Coast Salish lacrosse challenge. This is a partnership that we've created with Aboriginal Sport and Recreation. It's a showcase event where we'll also have involved some of the Vancouver Stealth players to come out, facilitate some learning workshops for children to be involved in and learn some of the basic skills of lacrosse. We also have a Coast Skatish skateboarding and DJs that will be hosted at the skateboarding park here in Lafarge Lake. And we have a youth arts training boot camp that we are also going to be facilitating in the summer at Pine Tree Secondary School. And this is an opportunity for engaging our youth, recruiting them to come in and learn some skills that are related to the actual festival itself. So this will be a mentorship program. Kids will be, youth will be learning about social media, how to facilitate social media through event planning and things of this nature.
So like a lot of the work, we talked about sustainability, we're tied in with the future and the past of Coquitlam. We're trying to bring that conversation together. As you know, it's the anniversary coming up next year. It's Canada's 150th, the year after. So we're really looking at a 3-year arc for this development. And so bringing kids in from the school district to learn how to do this work is part of the work. It's that legacy piece. So in 3 years, we'll be passing it over to other younger people to continue with this festival.
And before you advance slides, and before you continue, that was Pine Tree Secondary, not Pine Wood Secondary.
Yes, sorry.
No worries.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for that. It looks like a really neat program, and not just because there's food trucks. I love food trucks. Looking forward to seeing this come to life. I've got Councillor Asmundson.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you guys for putting this together. I think it's long overdue, and I think the other thing is making the overall cultural. I'm chair of the Multicultural Committee, and reaching out to all cultures and how you're going to reach out to the broad cultures to understand all nations, the Native community within our cultures here. So I thank you for doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this as a business item at my Multicultural Committee meeting coming up in a week's time, and have the other people in different agencies disperse it to the different communities. I think it's really important that we get everybody from the broad community coming out and getting a better understanding of the Native community, the Coquitlam that are here, but all the other nations here. And I'm looking forward to this 3-year term, and I think it's an outstanding way of bridging gaps and creating better understanding. So I thank both of you gentlemen for stepping up and helping put this together. And you put together what I think is quite an amazing program, so kudos to you, and thank you for the good work that you've done on this. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Councillor Cirillo.
Thank you. This is wonderful. I just started following you on Twitter, so thank you for that. About marketing outside of the Tri-Cities, is there going to be a marketing plan to get wider reach?
Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, as Councillor Asmussen said, there's an emphasis on bringing everybody to the table who's in Coquitlam. And when you look at the language groups and the huge communities that are here, the diverse communities that are here, we want them to all be represented. We want them to feel like it's a festival for them. But equally, we want people outside in Surrey, in Vancouver, and Maple Ridge to know that this is something that's putting Coquitlam on the map. So in terms of cultural tourism, it's definitely going to be a prime opportunity for Coquitlam to show itself to the larger region. And I think also because, not just because we have a strong First Nations component, but we have a great mix of professional artists from around the country. So that in itself will be an attraction, and that the fact that Douglas, Evergreen, the outside environment are all hosting these artists, it's going to look really good on Coquitlam, and I think, yeah, it'll be a mix of the local, hyper-local, but also the broader region that'll be coming to this. So
your marketing will be social media marketing outside of this Tri-Cities, or how will
There's a $10,000 marketing budget, and so that includes display ads in the Georgia Strait, in the Surrey newspapers, in the Tri-City newspapers, but also a heavy street campaign, postering, social media, very dynamic. We're strong in marketing, and I think that'll be, we'll be bringing all those assets to the table, and it'll be social media, viral videos, Twitter, Facebook, but also more traditional Shaw TV with Jeff Scott's team, and then the traditional display ads and the postering in the community centres and libraries throughout the region.
That's wonderful. Well, could I ask you to just invite all of council so we can get in our calendars? That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate you coming in. In a moment, we're going to talk about you. Make sure it's not behind your back here.
Thank you, Your Worship. As previously stated, we're advancing to report item number 8 at this time, which concerns a vacancy appointment to the Coquitlam 125th Anniversary Steering Task Force. Staff recommendation is that Council appoint Mr. Malcolm Key to the Coquitlam 125th Anniversary Steering Task Force.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Wilson.
If you agree to this, Malcolm, I just want to let you know we have a meeting tomorrow night. Yes. Great, thank you.
I got to rule one of you out of order, but never mind. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, and so Mr. Key, I think you now know what you're going to be doing on Saturday, July 25th of this year, and on Monday, July 25th of 2016, because that's our official 125th birthday on July 25th of 2016. So there you go. So we'll be celebrating then as well.
Outstanding. Okay, the motion is a staff recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And with our thanks to Mr. Key. Thank you.
Thank you. Returning to the regular order, we're now at item 2, and this concerns the MS Society. I'd like to invite Leo Q to come forward and Jason Holbert to present.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Jason, he has some family duties, so he cannot come. All right. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Leo Q. I'm a volunteer with MS Society. I'm the planning committee member for the Tri-City MS Walk this year. My friend's mom has MS, and I was invited to participate in the MS Walk 5 years ago in Ottawa. And since then, I'm really devoted to volunteer for MS Walk. And this is my 4th year planning the MS Walk. So MS is autoimmune conditions that affects approximately 100,000 people in Canada today. Canada has one of the highest rates of diagnosed MS in the world, and it's the most common neurological disease affecting young adults in Canada. It's an unpredictable condition causing damage in the brain and brain stems. There is no cure, and the best treatment now is only to slow the progression. It is a hard reality to live with, but with many MS patients with part of positivity, part of awareness, as well as part of denial. They try to fight MS every day. Every day, 3 more people in Canada are diagnosed with MS. Women are more than 3 times as likely to develop MS as men. And MS can cause loss of balance, impaired speech, extreme fatigue, and double visions, as well as paralysis. So MS Society, MS Society is the national organization with a focus on support, research, and research into treatments, and with an ultimate goal of finding cure of the disease. They provide information on MS, counseling, peer and family support groups, equipment to enhance the patient's mobility, adapted social and recreational programs, and advocacy for legal matters. Annual fundraising events and donations account for 86% of funds that enable the MS Society to provide free services and programs for those living with MS and to support leading research to find a cure. And multitasking. So MS Walk is a signature fundraising event of MS Society. We have 7 walks scheduled in the month of April and May in Lower Mainland. We have walks in Langley, Surrey, Tri-Cities, and Vancouver this year. Over 6,000 people will participate in one of the 23 Scotiabank MS walks in communities across BC and Yukon, helping raising $1.3 million in BC. Individuals can either choose to participate alone or be part of the team. There are various ways walkers can raise funds. They can have an online page, which can be personalized with their photo or videos. Many of them also have creative ways to fundraise, such as throwing a fancy dinner party, hosting a movie night, and have different kind of events like karaoke or bake sale. This year, Tri-Cities MS Walk, Scotiabank MS Walk will be scheduled for Sunday, May 24th at the Rocky Point Park. As of today, we have 27 teams registered with over 125 walkers will be participating. We try hard to provide participants and volunteers an amazing day event. We will have a cheerleader to cheer for the participants, the crowd, and the successful completion of the walk. We also provide snacks and refreshments and entertainments for the participants. We have coffees and chocolate milks, a lot of food donated by Starbucks, Island Farms, Thrifty Foods, as well as Coquitlam Kinsman, and many more. Last year, Tri-City Walks has approximately 275 attendees during walks, including walkers and volunteers, and raised over $57,000. A portion of these funds were returned back to the Tri-City MS community. The Tri-City MS Self-Help Group informally linking residents living with MS, providing them with emotional and practical support, encourages them to engage in their community and live healthy lifestyles. So this is the first time Tri-City MS Walk Planning Committee have a chance to present myself on behalf of the team to the city of Coquitlam. We were hoping you would support the Tri-City Scotiabank MS Walk by making a donation to us. With your generous donation, we could offset a lot of our infrastructure and logistics expenditures, thereby providing more funds towards the mission of MS Society. We would strongly invite you all to attend to the event. Its goal is to raise funds for multiple sclerosis and also raise awareness of MS in the community and community for those who live with MS. The event is again scheduled for May 24th at Rocky Point Park in Port Moody. The walk starting at 10 a.m. and I hope you will all be a part of our success. Mayor Stewart and honorable council members, On behalf of the MS Society, I thank you again for allowing me to present you tonight and invite any questions that you might have about the event or MS Society. Thank you.
I thank you very much for coming. I don't think I've missed more than one or two of these over the last decade. They're absolutely they're inspiring, and we thank you very much for coming out to tell us about them, and I'm sure a whole bunch of us will be promoting them.
Great.
So
thank you very much. Thanks.
It's my wife's birthday. I'll have to get her permission to go. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item, item 3, is minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, May 4th. Recommendation to approve.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Marsden. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is minutes of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee special meeting held on Thursday, April 9th. Recommendation to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Towner. Councillor O'Neill, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. There's tremendous detailed minutes capturing the breadth and depth of the conversation we had. But in doing so, I think it might have, the minutes also might have missed a point of agreement that was unanimous in the committee, at the advisory committee, and that was dealing with, as an important first step in the advancements of art, culture, and heritage in the city, that the Innovation Centre should be dedicated to arts, culture, and heritage. That was a unanimous decision of, well, not a decision, a recommendation and input from this committee, advisory committee meeting. You kind of put all of this together when you read this, and you might get that out of it, but it was very specifically stated, and I just wanted to get that on the record. I think I actually mentioned it once in council before, but here with these minutes, just to interpret the minutes in a very pointed way, that was one very specific recommendation that the advisory committee recommended. Is that not right, Councillor Towner? I think it is. It was. Good. Thank you very much.
Does that include the Chamber of Commerce's undeniable role as cultural something?
We'll leave that to brighter minds than us to figure out how that is defined. Thank you.
There we go. Councillor Zerillo.
Just in follow-up through the chair, is that a recommendation coming to council then? Because I do see it here in the minutes. Is that a recommendation coming to council that the Innovation Centre should be dedicated?
No, I take. We'll activate the chair's mic as a question direct.
That was. Push my button? Okay. No, that was a unanimous piece of advice from the advisory committee to the consultants. And the consultants will take that, weigh it. They get a lot of different input from a lot of different people and groups, and they will incorporate that, we hope, into their final recommendation. And that final recommendation, the final consultants' report, which will be the strategic plan for arts, culture, and heritage, will come to council. Thank you for the question, though.
Thank you. Certainly not the first time that it has been suggested that there might be better uses for that building that are more in line with the precinct, that it should be a big part of. But so we'll see. Thank you for that. So the motion was approval of the minutes. All in favor? Sorry, the motion was receipt of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next item, item 5, concerns fourth and final reading of the 2015 annual tax rates bylaw number 4562. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to the 2015 annual tax rates bylaw number 4562.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Tanner, second by Councillor Asmussen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item number 6 is an official community plan text amendment bylaw number 4561, zoning text amendment bylaw number 4558, official community plan amendment bylaw number 4559, and zoning amendment bylaw number 4560. These pertain to a mixed-use high-density development at 655 North Road and 515 to 525 Foster Avenue. Staff recommendations that Council do the following. Give first reading to City of Coquitlam Official Community Plan Text Amendment Bylaw Number 4561. First reading to City of Coquitlam Zoning Text Amendment Bylaw Number 4558. First reading to City of Coquitlam Official Community Plan Map Amendment Bylaw Number 4559. That in accordance with the Local Government Act, the Council consider Bylaw 4559 in conjunction with the City of Coquitlam 2015 5-year financial plan Bylaw Number 4545 and the Regional Solid Waste Management Program. The Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam Zoning Map Amendment Bylaw Number 4560. That bylaws number 4561, 4558, 4559, and 4560 be referred to public hearing, and that in addition to the normal public hearing notifications, that notification of the public hearing also be sent to the Coquitlam Community Association, Oakdale Community Association, TransLink, School District 43, Metro Vancouver, and the City of Burnaby, who were all sent notifications as part of the Section 879 Land Use Amendment consultation process.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. First reading. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Sorry.
No one's going to speak on it?
Well, apparently, no one had activated their microphone, so I'm going to.
Okay.
We'll call back the vote. We'll go to Councillor Zerillo.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to speak on a few things that didn't get to this afternoon. One of them was about the dogs. We're looking at potentially 816 units, I think, and I'm thinking that we're going to get a lot of dogs. So I'm just wondering if any concessions have been made for the dogs to have free area. I'm thinking there could be as many as 500 dogs, probably at least 300 dogs. Do we have any space for dogs?
Your Worship,
Go ahead.
Certainly can answer the question. We're the Parks, Recreation and Culture, who typically would has a role to play in terms of dog off-leash services in our parks. Now, there's other aspects of dog management, such as bylaw enforcement, etc. But I will answer the question from the Parks and Recreation and Culture perspective on people that own dogs and the off-leash services that they might be seeking in our parks. In the neighborhood such as this. At this point, we are involved in the neighborhood plan, and there's a lot of work happening in terms of outdoor and open space services. There's no specific work that I can inform council of at this time in terms of details, because the process is very early. We are thinking about off-leash services citywide as something we need to look at in the next year or two in our business plan. Certainly we would look at that component to a degree in the neighborhood plan, but largely that is something that comes out of more of an operational aspect of a park when we're programming it. So once the total amount of open space is determined in an area like this, and we understand the kind of clientele we might have, then there's a programming exercise that's done to determine what the users are looking for, and dog off-leash services is something that we look at that time. So that's as far as I can answer.
Great. So just through the chair, because I heard some mumbling there that this isn't the place for these type of questions. So the reason that I wanted to ask some questions or make some comments now is because I feel that if we just go forward to the first reading without any input, it gives staff the idea that, yeah, everyone's fine with it. So is this or isn't this not the proper place through the chair for me to make some comments about what I might be concerned about or would like to think about for first reading if it goes? Okay.
Right now we're dealing with the zoning. There's first reading of a number of bylaws, primarily zoning and OCP. So this is the question of land use. Is this an appropriate land use? Is high-rise residential an appropriate land use here? There may be some questions raised at public hearing on items like the services in the community and those sorts of things. And we've typically, as a council, allowed a lot of latitude at public hearing for debate over even the number of wheelchair parking spaces, the types of finishes on concrete, and the sorts of development permit questions at public hearing. The challenge with first reading is that staff can't go back and can't really change the report after it's given first reading. So the questions that come up at first reading don't guide the process moving forward. The questions that come up at second or after the public hearing, when we give or not, second and third. If we were to give second and third reading, then staff are able to work with the proponent on a number of development permit sorts of issues as to, for example, is there off-leash dog space on the podium of one of the high-rise towers, or is there some component of the site that is being permitted for the specifically for the use of the pets in the building, but not normally at first reading. But it's not disallowed. It's simply not normal.
Okay. Yeah, because I do have some thoughts about, you know, if we're talking about rezoning to much higher density, I think initially right now we're at 3 stories, maximum 3 stories, that we're going to be going up to potentially tenfold that these are the things that affect the zoning. If there isn't enough public space, then I'm concerned about that. So the other thing I wanted to mention, I would have mentioned it this afternoon if I had known that this was going to be, that others weren't going to speak, because I was interested to hear what others had to say. I said it today in the afternoon, and I'll say it again, is that I'm concerned that we are equating affordability, the word rental, with the word affordability, and I don't think the two of them are the same, and I don't even think they're mutually exclusive. So I do have some concerns about how this is being presented in regards to affordability, and I will be listening to see what the community has to say, but I have to say there's been a lot of community input already, as well as community input from the Coquitlam community planning process that's saying that this area is not ready at this time for this sort of density. Thank you, through the Chair.
Okay, and as Councillor Zerillo alluded, there was a good presentation this afternoon in Council and Committee. If anyone wants to review that, it will be online sometime tomorrow, because all of those meetings are taped and webcast and archived, so you'll be able to watch the discussion. And it included elements of the typical rents, the size of units, and the typical types of rent affordability questions that Councillor Zerillo just alluded to. Councillor Marsden, and we'll have Wilson and O'Neill. Councillor Marsden.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things that if we might ask through the Chair for staff to clarify, perhaps in advance of public hearing. On page 9 of the report, it does speak to some feedback from residents with regards to TDS not meeting the TDS. However, on page 7 of the report, the staff assessment indicates that it does. So if we could just get a little bit more clarity around that, again, perhaps just prior to or in conjunction with the public hearing, that would be tremendous. As well, on page 9, it speaks to increased traffic, and so if staff has any information with regards to traffic studies, management plans, or things that some of it was alluded to this morning or earlier this afternoon in our session, but if there could be greater clarity around that, that would be appreciated. And the last item, and I'll ask the Chair, again, this has to do with, on page 17, it speaks to the size of the units, and that they're significantly smaller than what's currently there. Now, it would look, when I look at the report, I see that there was previously 3-bedroom units and there isn't any longer, so I'm just wondering, does that make up the bulk of the reduction in unit size? Obviously, a 2-bedroom unit it is going to be significantly smaller than a 3-bedroom unit. I'm just wondering if that makes up the bulk of it. I don't see these being micro suites by any stretch of the imagination, so if we could get some clarity around that, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
That's not for today, that's
prior to public hearing. Great.
Got it. Thank you. I will say, though, that historically the units in that building, even the smaller, the fewer number of bedrooms, had more square feet than a typical unit might have in today's market. So, Councillor O'Neill. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. Yeah, but some of my concerns were just about how it doesn't seem to follow our guidelines in the TDS, and my concern was the people who bought in the Mosaic property just to the east of it, would have looked at our TDS and tried to assess what might go in there. They might have asked some questions about the current zoning and all that, and I'm just trying to find the clauses where I had that. But leapfrogging shouldn't be a harsh transition. Right out of our policy, neighborhood plan updates will be discouraged if the proposal results in non-contiguous transition of building forms, significantly out of character with adjacent existing building form or density. So I had concerns about that. The height of the units. At the same time, I want to see more rental, so I'm conflicted. My concerns about the proposed rental rates, or what's suggested as rental rates for what might be charged in the market or in the condo from investors. And I'm just wondering who provided those rental figures of, was that the applicant or was that our staff? They figure that the market or the rent in the concrete condos from investor owners renting them out would be approximately $1,000 to $1,500 a month. Was that our staff's research, or was that provided by the applicant?
Mr. Johansson.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, the applicant provided that information.
Okay, because I thought those seemed a little bit low, so I went on Craigslist and I looked at towers in the Lougheed Mall area, the newer towers that are there, and they're a lot more expensive than that. So I'm just a little bit unsure of what we're being told here. One bedrooms were more like $1,600, $1,500. Two bedrooms were $1,700, $1,800, $1,900, and those are in towers that are 5, 6, 8, 10 years old. So I don't think they're going to be as closely priced as listed in here. So yeah, I just had I don't know where to go on this. We have 38 people, I think it is, that responded. About 30 are opposed to it. The public information meeting that the applicant held. Again, we have forums in here. Quite a few people are opposed to it on those forums. If we hold a public meeting, are we going to hear anything, or public hearing, are we going to hear anything that different? I get frustrated when we put something out there and people get all concerned, and they lobby and get together, and we create all this stress in the community. But if I'm the only one that's got those concerns, I guess it'll pass. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of questions regarding process, and one is a very simple one. Sometimes if this does go to public hearing, and then after a public hearing, there's a series of, when we have a regular council meeting after that public hearing, sometimes we have all the readings of the bylaw following, and sometimes it's just second and third and fourth comes later. Is this the latter? And maybe is this going to be one of the latter ones where if it does go to public hearing, then after the public hearing, is it then second and third reading would follow most likely in the council meeting after, or all four readings?
This is the development permit would be a separate vote, so we need a third reading. Probably on public hearing night, and if that passes, then there would be a month or two, and followed by a fourth reading at development permit.
So the development permit, that if there's any variances in the development permit, that's like a mini public hearing there again. Is that right?
Mr. Clerk.
I would just say on the variances, unless they are council delegated variances, which are found in our bylaw. If it's a development variance permit which we contact the neighborhood, that would not happen until after fourth reading, because we would not allow people to come and speak prior to fourth reading.
Oh, I see. Okay. The other one is...
Sorry, one moment. Mr. McIntyre wanted to clarify.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Thanks very much. No, you're quite correct. The following public hearing, presuming the bylaws are supported by council, there would be a lag till the DP comes forward. And with that, I think we've even flagged in this report here that there's likely going to be some minor variances, but that would be down the track. The other thing, too, there's a housing agreement, and there's a housing agreement bylaw that needs to bring that forward. So there would be a number of items that still need to be concluded before the project could be finalized.
Okay, thank you. Now, this next question is more of a just understanding the sort of the inner workings of the planning department, and when it decides to support a development in the face of what public input there's been a lot of negative response. Is it because you're satisfied that there's at least been consultation and the developer has followed all the steps and gone above and beyond, and even in the face of negative public response, you are still prepared to recommend this? Or how does that happen? Like I do remember that a year and a half ago or so, the school board came to us with a rezoning application for what ended up being 8 lots at Parkland Elementary, and that was not recommended to council, essentially because the consultation process had shown a lot of opposition, and maybe the consultation wasn't done properly. So we had a lot of opposition and consultation not done properly. Here we have exhaustive consultation and a lot of opposition. So I'm just trying to figure out what leads to a support and what leads to a rejection. If you can talk, it may be very difficult to talk specifically about this. It's such a complex proposal, but I'd just like to understand a little more.
Your Worship, that's a very interesting question, and maybe just indulge me. The one example cited by Councillor O'Neill, the school district property on Como Lake, that was a significant OCP amendment. That was going from a public park, school use to residential. There was an 879 process that had been initiated. In our view, based on the feedback we were receiving at the time, we thought it really deserved additional consultation. So that was our recommendation we came forward to council. This application here, we work through a process. We don't embrace and automatically support these applications. They come in across the counter. We look at them. So in that respect, a little bit like council, you approach it with an open mind, and you talk with the applicant, you ask questions, you do your research, you hear from various parties. But from the planning department, from staff's perspective, we're also held to the plans we have in place. What would be the purpose of us in preparing official community plans and the like if we didn't use that as a reference point? In this area as well, we have the Transit-Oriented Development Strategy, the TDS, as a reference piece for us. And in that, there are some questionable or areas of policy and strategy that can be picked at and questioned, and fair enough. But we use that, both the neighborhood plan, which is a little bit dated for this area, but more particularly the TDS, as our benchmark for reviewing the application. Our team meets with the applicant and their designers on a number of occasions. It's reviewed from staff across the organization, engineering, environmental services, transportation, so on and so forth. In planning, we try to coordinate and integrate those comments so we can look at it in an integrated way, relay those comments back, along with our own in terms of it may be building design, it may be their approach to the affordable housing component, it may be the need for road dedications, green space through the site, and the like. So it goes through kind of an iterative process back and forth, and we try to be efficient and timely on that because time is money for the applicant, and they're keen to get forward to council, but they want to go forward to council with staff support. So at the end of the day, after a number of months of that sort of work back and forth, we come to, within the department, kind of a consensus position on terms of what is the staff's position on that application. And that's what is represented in our recommendation that comes forward under my name to council or to the city manager. We, at this point, we recommend first reading and forwarding the bylaws onto a public hearing, because we do believe in absolutely in the process, and there needs to be that ability for the public to speak. There may be questions, there may be concerns, there may be things that we're not aware of, we haven't anticipated to this point in our review, and the neighborhood, the community deserves that opportunity to speak at the public hearing. With the public hearing brief, we, at that time, based on what we're hearing, we will make recommendations to council, whether you give it the second, third reading, or second, third, and fourth, but in this case that would not apply. And so we would provide that additional, we hope, is assistance to council at that time.
Thank you for that. That's an excellent answer, and I guess a very simple takeaway for me from that is that all things considered, at this stage, staff says this is good land use, but good enough to go forward. Thank you.
Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you very much. Interesting proposal. I guess one of the questions I have, and we talked about density earlier on in our meeting today, and I guess refresh my memory if you could, please. There's a substantial amount of road taking on this project. How does that affect their buildable density? When they lose all that road, because there's a proposed east-west, north-south, widening of Foster, that reduces their biddable, allowable footprint and density that they can now build on the site. If they didn't give up that road allowance, their density on the site could be greater?
Your Worship, there was a good presentation, a good discussion this afternoon at the council and committee meeting. There was a number of questions that were raised at that time. Our commitment was to go back and as best we could to check into those and come back with some numbers. So actually, Michael's got a number of items of information for council, and that's one of those questions that was asked. So if I can turn over to Michael then.
This one wasn't asked. This is a new question. So it's more about, I know I asked about what was the amount of DCCs and other charges that they had, but the question is that we're taking in a new east-west road, a new north-south road. If that wasn't taken on this project, what would their density of buildable be different on this? They would have a higher ability of density on the site, correct?
Right, sorry, I was jumping to the next part of the question. Two answers to that. With the zoning bylaw text amendments that we brought forward to council were approved last year, in those instances, in those areas covered by the TDS, where there's the need for a road widening or road taking, that is provided, but the applicant, the developer, doesn't lose the development rights of that land.
Okay.
So it's a way of the city attaining necessary road dedications, but it sort of softens the blow, if you will, that the developer can still utilize that area in their calculations. Where there is an impact, and I think this was discussed this afternoon, that then becomes road allowance, and so it's lost, say, for below grade parking. For your parquet cannot extend out into that area, so it may have some implications that way.
But it does have some impacts with them. Okay. Just want to understand that better. Just going to go through the report here. I think the amenity space is quite large, and I think the benefit by most of these people would be using the amenity space within there. I think it's something like 67,000 square feet, which is a common amenity space, which is quite large, what I think would be a benefit to the community. I also noticed that we have 1,096, Councillor Neal, bicycle storage spaces. So I think, as we saw from Hub today, that's a good thing. Through the report. I know it's an estimation of the range, the future rent in the area, and I'm not going to. I think there's a rental building, 57 units, potential of up to 200 market rental units. We have 112 there. I think when you increase market rental units, hopefully you're going to have a lowering of the price by putting more market rentals in the system. I think that's a benefit to everybody. I do think, though, that for people of low income, there are programs for seniors like SAFER and other provincial government subsidy programs for people to offset their rent at certain income levels. I think that needs to be specified also. No, I think that's about it. I'm going to support this going through the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
We heard a number of, questions that were raised today during the committee meeting. Some suggested that that we might want to see changes and things, that there might be those requests coming forward. So I'm just wondering, the process, we go to public hearing with this document as it is. Following that, do we just, and this is really about a land use change, but a lot of the things that we're hearing concerns about, building heights and things, are those really more part of the development permit? I mean, this is just about changing one land designation to another, which doesn't necessarily mean that this is what's going to be built. We've seen that before, where developer comes out with pictures and drawings, but that's not what we're actually voting on. We're voting on a land use change or designation at this point. Have I got that right, just so I've got the process right for the public?
Through the chair, essentially yes. Following a public hearing, you cannot change land use or increase density. Following a public hearing, you can reduce density with the property owner's permission. What's shown here is the development concept, so council and the community understands what's being proposed, and so it'd be on that basis that the development permit would go forward. If council, depending on what's the discussion at the public hearing, was to ask for or suggest some changes in the building forms, that could be something that would raise then, and it would have to be then brought forward to the DP process thereafter.
And I'm thinking to some of the discussions we had today about shifting heights here and there and this sort of thing. I mean, I know it's complicated because they're two separate pieces of property, so I think that complicates it. But there is some room for some changes following second and third if issues are raised at the public hearing. It's not a sort of this or nothing. The land use certainly is, but within that land use plan, and this is following up with what Councillor O'Neill said, there is that potential that fourth reading and the development permit may come later with some revisions if council gives that direction at the public hearing. Okay, just want to be sure. 879, it looks like the developer has certainly done a good process or consultation, because we certainly had some feedback, more than what we've seen in a lot of developments. And I think it's important to note that the 879 is a process that's conducted by the applicant, not the city process, although these will form part of the public record because they're submitted with the development or with first reading. So they're part of the public record, but the public hearing is a separate process in addition to the 879. Sir, to the court. No.
Mr. Just to provide additional certainty that, in fact, this entire report forms part of the public hearing agenda, so all of those documents will be captured there.
So as if they had sent us an email or anything else, so that becomes part of consideration. When we go out to the public, we will be advertising the public hearing in our normal method, so advertising in the paper, signs in front. I note that we're going to directly contact some of the groups. And just to refresh my memory, how far out do we go in terms of actually direct distribution to residents in the area?
Sure. So what we traditionally, and sorry, I asked for some of that information, so if you give me a second to pull it up. We do signs, we do the ads. The newspaper requires us to have 2 ads. We do 3. Because of the change in some of the timing of distribution of papers, we're actually advertising both papers now, whereas before we would just be in one. Our circumference is 100 meters, and it would also include, thus, for the location of this place, City of Burnaby. And just to give you a breakdown, We're going to be sending out 1,237 letters as part of this public notification process. 160 go to tenants, 383 to owners, 36 to businesses, 3 to secondary suites. We're doing 587 to the current rental occupants within that 100-meter zone, and we're sending it to 66 owners in Burnaby. So, yeah, well, close to 1,250 letters will be sent out.
Direct letters to them.
Letters sent out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Asmussen, do you have one more question before I rule you out of order?
Well, you haven't done that before. I just forgot to ask a couple questions, and actually, Councillor Wilson also, I came over and had those. The question in regards to the DCC cost and the extra cost, and even the land cost that the developer would be by giving up the roads, the value towards that, and we didn't get that answer through, and I have a couple other points after that I'd like to raise.
Through your worship, the DCC payment would be $6.49 million for the total project. The land value, if you base it on current land value for the dedications, would be $3 million.
Okay. The other question I forgot to ask, is there going to be, have we talked about a car share within these units? Are they donating?
2 car share vehicles.
2 car shares? Okay, I didn't see it. Thank you very much. And the last point is, when a developer comes forward with an application, they have a pro forma they go through for cost and viability. If you reduce density later on or after a public hearing, the whole project may no longer be able to move forward because of their pro forma may never work, and that would be the end of the project. So I think those are the difficulties about that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Given that you've started this second round, Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask your indulgence to ask just one more question.
That's what he did. Yes,
okay,
go ahead.
Thank you. And it came to me when the city clerk was talking about the 100-meter circumference for sending out the notices. It seems to me that when we're dealing with a 37-story tower, is that 37-story proposed? That tower is more than 100 meters tall, I would guess. And one would think that we might want to at least get the notification out into a distance. Well, listen, really, like we're only talking. We're going to officially notify people within 100 meters of a tower that's taller than 100 meters tall, and that maybe the 100-meter rule worked when we were rezoning for townhouses and low-density four-story apartment buildings or something like that. But for 37, maybe this is, I don't think we can change the rule now, but I think maybe this is something we should look at going forward. This is a tall building, the one in the middle. And am I right about the height? It'll be over 100 meters, correct?
It would be approximately 100 meters, keeping in mind that the zoning, that we're actually, the public hearing is about the zoning would permit various levels of
I know that, but what's on the table now is a 100-meter tall plus tower, and we're only notifying within 100 meters. It just seems a lot. I think we should notify in a broader area.
Throwing some more work at you.
Did a little advance prep for this as well. So our notification distance is set by bylaw. And the bylaw does give council the discretion to extend that notification via resolution only. And the belief is that if we shouldn't vary notification, and it's not the right word, but on a whim. Like it has to, because someone will always claim they're outside the line. So why did you go to this distance here and that distance there? But our notification at 100 meters is actually the standard, if not exceeds many other municipalities. And I'm relying on a report from Surrey dated in 2011. I'll just give us a couple examples on that front. Maple Ridge had at that time, subject to change of course, had a public hearing of notification of 50 meters. Abbotsford was 100 meters. Langley, the township, was 100 meters. Richmond was 50 meters. Delta and Surrey were both 100 meters. So we're well within the norms. I believe, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe in Burnaby was only 35 meters. So we're certainly within the range. What I would say this evening, and Councillor O'Neill acknowledged some of the time challenges, if we were to extend the notification, it would not be possible to get this item to the May public hearing. We couldn't turn around the additional mailings, and because we need to get addresses from Burnaby, you need to produce the volume of letters. And one of the reasons behind Surrey's report, and they've done it a couple of times, was also looking at some of the, the report says Burnaby in 2000 was 30 meters. Vancouver's only 27 meters. You just cannot, we're sending 1,200 letters. We started the process of developing those letters in advance of this evening, obviously, in order to get the letters mailed out by Wednesday. So we would run into some logistical challenges if that was to happen for this particular item. But going forward, just for Council's information, they always have a right via resolution to change the notification boundary if they so wish within the bylaw.
It's not something I'd want to do precipitously, but maybe it's a good discussion for us to have in the future, especially when we're dealing with a tower that's taller than the notification area is wide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also want to thank our clerk, because either he gave you advance notice or you're incredibly well prepared for every question that might come your way.
I'm going to let people come to their own conclusions on this.
Councillor Zerillo.
I'm going to say that it's the second one. Could we please have the to-date community input from the Lougheed-Coquitlam neighbourhood plan added to the public hearing doc? And the reason I'm asking for that is because we're looking at this in relation to the whole neighbourhood, and it would be great to have that input that we've already gathered. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now, first reading of all of those things. Toying with me. All in favor? Opposed? I see 8 hands and a thumb. Motion is unanimous. We'll see a public hearing. Thank you.
The next item, item 7, is the text amendment to the sign bylaw. This is bylaw number 4535. Staff recommendations that Council give first, second, and third readings to the City of Coquitlam sign amendment bylaw number 4535.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Marsden. Councillor Marsden.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Are there any with this change businesses that would now be in violation of the new bylaw that we're dealing with, having to grandfather them in?
Thank you.
As through the chair to Councillor Marsden, to our knowledge, there wouldn't be.
Okay. And then in the event one were to come to light, at what point would they be required to bring their signage in line with the new bylaw? Would it be with regards to renovations, updates to their premises, or would it be on a more proactive basis due to perhaps a complaint from a neighboring property?
Mr. Johansson.
Yeah, we could do that if they change their sign. If they're going to do improvements to the building or the face or the facade, we can look at that.
Okay. But that would be typically related to exterior changes?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm actually going to ask a question, and it's not entirely relevant, but it's in the bottom paragraph of page 1 of the staff report. It refers to the length of the building facing the street, and in some cases we have buildings that face the street on the front and the freeway on the back, or something like that. How are those dealt with? Because obviously those that face the freeway on the back are more interested in how much signage they can put on the side facing away from the street and facing the freeway in many cases.
That's true, Your Worship. And I recall that there was a amendment to the sign bylaw not that long ago that was looking at just that issue. Because remember, there had been a varied approach to that over the years, particularly for those businesses along United Boulevard, and there was seemingly some inconsistencies there. But that was...
and Woolwich, for that matter, yeah.
And in Woolwich, too, yes. Thank you, sir. And my recollection was that was cleared up, and so there's that ability to count both those frontages in the signage calculations.
Okay. I vaguely remember that we talked about it. I can't remember what we did about it, so thank you. Nobody else? Text amendment first, second, and third. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Your Worship.
Anyone want to do number 8 over again? Nope. No, apparently not. Mr. Clerk.
It would seem rude.
It would seem rude.
Given that we have already considered item number 8, that's the last formal item on this agenda.
Particularly if we had a different outcome this time. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Asmussen to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll now have a question period on tonight's agenda. Any items on tonight's agenda? Any questions about items on tonight's agenda? Any items? Any questions? Thank you all for coming.